and welcome to a Wealthy Life podcast with me, Vicky Boucher. This podcast is all about mindset, finance, and investment. Why? Because if you understand what your mind is doing in terms of supporting you or tripping you up, and you can get into a position where you and your thoughts are both working towards the same goal, then it is so easy to be successful at anything you set your mind to. We talk about mindset. You need to literally set your thoughts on the same path as you want to achieve, whether that's losing weight, creating a relationship, or creating a wealthy life. In this particular episode, I'm going to be talking about why mindset matters, the challenges of investing in property, the risks that you're going to take, hopefully calculated risks and conscious risks rather than just throwing yourself in without knowing about it, are very much like those that were faced on a TV program I was watching recently, Channel 4's SAS Who Dares Wins, where they take a bunch of celebrities through the induction process into the SAS. They put them through physical and mental hardship. My goodness, the lessons that were in there, I just watched it back to back because all I could hear were all these messages that were saying to me personally, Vicky, is your mind set? Are you absolutely clear on what it was that you wanted to achieve? And I know that it has made a difference for me. So, not that I want you to go off and watch that program now, listen to this episode, but at the end of this episode, go check out the program and see if you can see the things that I have pointed out to you. Even if you don't want to go and watch that program, this particular episode is going to take you through a series of really key insights that I want you to understand about how your mind works. One of the key things that I did in my life was train as an NLP practitioner, and that has made such a difference to how I think and how I understand the thought processes that go in my head. We're amazing creatures, human beings. The fact that we can consciously have thoughts or become consciously aware of our thoughts. Isn't nature incredible? Before we head off down that line, let's get back to why your mindset matters. And I hope you're going to get a lot out of this episode. Thank you for listening in advance. So, why mindset matters? That's what we're talking about in this episode. And really what I want you to understand as part of this whole series of podcasts that I've been doing about property investment, and of course it could be any form of investment. It could be even investment into your own business, into stocks and shares, or just setting a goal to achieve something. As soon as you do something that is different from what you normally do, and let's say your normal day is you just get up and you get washed, hurrah, that's a win, and then you go to work and then you come home and then you sort of reverse the process and eventually you go back to bed again. At some point you decide, I think I want a bit more than that, and so you do something differently. Your mind will panic. Your mind is set up of three levels. We sometimes call it the lizard brain or the unconscious mind, and its whole purpose is to help you survive. So in the old days, it was out there looking for attack from wild animals or other tribes. And you then had this, either I'm going to fight it or I'm going to run away from it response, the fight or flight feeling. It helps you breathe. It helps you beat your heart, blink your eyes. It helps you sit upright so that you don't fall over. It knows which muscles to contract, and it knows to make your muscles contract in and out to help you breathe and pump your blood around your body, digest your food. All of this is going on, and all of this is encased in this circle that sits at the top of your neck. Now, if you change something, so say, for example, you put yourself in a different environment, and you might go from living in the country to the center of a city where there are lots and lots of people, and you might feel uncomfortable. You could go from your daily job of getting up in the morning, wash, dress, and decide, because maybe you saw a video, maybe you heard a podcast like this, or read a book, that you think that you want to invest in property. That could trigger a whole unconscious set of panic. And the way that materializes is in little voices coming into your head, thoughts popping into your head of, oh, no, I don't want to do that, or oh, that's dangerous, or oh, that could be risky. That is the base of your brain telling you that this could be a dangerous environment, that you're doing something different. For the last 10, 20, 30 years, you've got up, gone to work, gone to school, whatever it was you were doing, and now you're having these different thoughts and you're going to start looking at houses or watch videos about looking at houses, and you have this unconscious panic. If you don't work with your own thoughts to help them relax and help them understand that this is all part of a plan, that you know that what you're doing, that you're safe, and therefore you don't need to have all these thoughts about worrying, you're not going to be successful. And I can tell you that from more than 20 years of investing in property, and goodness me, how many more years of doing NLP and working with people around their mindsets for success. It's absolutely true. This is not woo-woo stuff. And if you have heard any ever little doubts in your mind, have you ever doubted something that you were going to do? Could be a relationship. It could be whether you were going to get a pay rise. It could be doubting whether you were going to be able to do some physical activity, like commit to going to the gym or run a marathon or anything, or buy a house successfully, maybe your first home, or get like I say, a pay rise or any of that stuff. Any sort of doubt that you come across, that's your little voice. That is your little voice saying to you, oh, you're doing something different. I'm worried for you. I'm going to send you these messages to look out for all the hazards that could be out there. The modern equivalents of the tiger or the tribe coming to attack you so that you can be protected. So when I was watching this TV program called SAS Who Dares Wins, and I watch every episode, whether it's with the general public or with the celebrities, because for me, it is a constant reminder of why the stuff I learned through my NLP, which is neuro linguistic programming training, is so important. That's where I learned about neuro of the brain, linguistic language, how the words that we speak give out secret messages about what's really going on in our thoughts. And when I work with my clients, I can hear them say trigger words. And it might be that they make a statement and then they'll use a specific word like because, and they'll say, I'm going to be successful because, and then they say something afterwards. The word because is a negator and it just rules out everything that you say in front of it. And when you only look at the second half of the sentence, that's the truth. Now, if that truth matches the front half, you're fine. But frequently you listen to people or you may read statements. You might read something that somebody has posted, or you might read something in a book. You can see how the second half of the sentence doesn't match the first. And then you know that there is a problem in the thinking. Another great word. Oh my goodness, we used to have so much fun with this word, is try. Try. I would challenge you now. Well, depends what you're doing. If you're driving, please don't do this. But try and stand up. You can't try and stand up. You either stand up or you don't stand up. And we know that the famous Yoda said, do or do not, there is no try, to young, was that Skywalker? I think Luke Skywalker. There is no try. And so when you hear someone, now listen for this word, when you hear people say, oh, I'm going to try, they're not committed to it. They're giving themselves an out. So can I have a pay rise? Yes, I'm going to try and speak to the accounts department for you tomorrow. I guarantee you they're not even going to speak to the accounts department next week. You know, when someone tries or says that they're going to try, it's actually a non-event. So you've really got to look at how that word plays out. Now, take all of that and everything else that I've said and apply that to this TV program that I was saying. And I've come out with what I hope are going to be 5 really powerful insights for you. Don't worry, I'm not going to spoil who wins, who loses, even who was in this program. So if you do want to watch it for yourself afterwards, then you'll still be able to watch it, I hope, with the same level of interest and then get these lessons for yourself as well. Maybe reinforce them for yourself. So let's pick up on these. So the first thing to say is that this series specifically is around celebrity contestants. They're constantly in the public eye. They earn a lot of money. They're fabulous on TikTok. And yet, as soon as you get into even the first episode of this series, you can see how much doubt and unhappiness there is in them. Now, this isn't always the image that they portray. I would say here that the lesson for me is don't compare yourself to other people. Very rarely do you get to see a real person, certainly not on a first meeting, certainly not on social media. To see the real person, this comes with trust. This is something I share with everyone I work with because I really understand when someone trusts me, because when they do trust me, they tend to tell me something that I already knew. They tend to tell me that they were struggling with something. It could be the emotions around investing, the guilt, all of that type of thing. It could be that they finally understand or they're coming to accept that there's something holding them back. It could be a past belief, and we can work on that. Think about the people in your life. How many people do you trust? Possibly not that many. Okay. And if you don't trust that many, thinking about those specific people, how many of them do you think trust you? Now, hopefully, there'll be a couple, right? If you're in a relationship, hopefully you and your partner trust one another. I would imagine if you have children, they trust you. Depending on the age of your children, whether you trust them or not, that's another story. And then maybe other members of your family. Do you trust your parents? Do your parents trust you? Now go out slightly further. Go out from that blood connection. Think about your best friend. Do you 100% trust them? Do you think that they 100% trust you? I would imagine that one might be a yes, because otherwise they might not be your best friend. Now think about some work colleagues. And so when we don't trust people, what happens is we hold bits back, bits that are personal to us. Often our worries, things that we are concerned about. And this is where, fundamentally, a lot of mental health issues come with. Because if you're struggling with something and you don't have anybody you can share it with, someone that you can trust, that you can speak to, who can help you give a different perspective, all of those thoughts stay in your head. And when those thoughts stay in your head, then what you trigger is this whole idea of self-talk. And that's the next point I want to come to. Is this, sometimes you can hear it as a little voice. It might pop in as a sentence. It might pop in as an image. It depends how you process ideas. Now, I recorded an exclusive interview for my community as part of the Wealthy Life community, and you'll see the links on how to join that for free as my guest for 3 months in the footnote of this podcast. And I recorded this interview on just this topic. The fact that we have these noises or sentences or images in our head that are actually us trying to process something that we don't understand, that we can't get clarity on, that we don't have maybe the experience or the skills to take this thought and go, okay, I understand what you're saying. This is a message about I'm doing something different and you're just trying to let me know that you've noticed I'm doing something different. I'm about to ride a bike on a road and I've never done that before. And so you're giving me these messages so that I can become very aware of the dangers in this new environment. And if you are aware of the dangers in the new environment, then there is a way that you can tell your mind it's okay. I rode a bike for years in the past. You've just forgotten about that. I'm all right. Or I'm only going to ride the distance of 3 houses and then I'm going to turn down a side road and be in the park. Don't worry. You can retrain your mind to calm down. Now, some of the voices that you get might not be your voice. It could be your parents. It could be people at school. It could be that bully, if you ever had a bully. The bully that says that you're not good enough or you're too stupid. It could have been a teacher. Sometimes it's a family member didn't use helpful and supportive words. And sometimes it's their voice that are telling you that you're going to fail. My mum doesn't have a voice in my head, but my dad's voice was always worried about failure, was always worried about taking too big a risk. And that's because I think that was the voice that was in his head. But I can only see that because I've done, if you like, the training, the conversation with myself to understand, where do these thoughts come from? Are these thoughts mine or are they someone else's? Now, for the celebrities on this program, some of those voices are coming through from social media. You can pick up some of those conversations and see how what they're saying as their doubts and their worries were never really theirs. They were given to them by unpleasant comments on social media. So if you could learn how to retrain this noise, this voice, these sentences, you would be in a position to then be back in control of your thoughts. Like I say, if you really want to get into that, if you join the Wealthy Life community, there's a podcast there for you to just go along and listen to. And now what you can do if you choose to watch the TV program is watch it and look at how the contestants react to the challenges that they're set and the things that they tell themselves. So what they've done is they've then started to set up almost like their own voice of negativity that is maybe created from other things that were said to them throughout their lives. And they've now created a sentence, and you can see it in each of them. And they say these words to themselves, and these words have consequences. It's such a powerful, if we taught all our children at school, oh, I'm off on one, but if we taught all of our children at school to understand this, and if we taught our teachers around NLP and the language they use, and if we used empowering conversations with children, so even when they do something wrong, you can highlight their mistake and explain how they can do better without labeling them as stupid, as idiots, as clumsy. Oh, that's dangerous. When really what we can do is we can turn the words round and make them more positive statements. We can still point out risk without giving people fear. We can still support people in the actions that they take without making them feel guilty or embarrassed. Do you think we'd be able to fix mental health issues? We'd certainly make stronger young people that are able to cope with the challenges. If you're listening to this, depending on what age you are, I didn't have to grow up in a social media world. My bullies were only the people that I met within the school period. So I only had to face my bullies from 9 o'clock in the morning till 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And then I got to go home and I left the bullies behind and they couldn't get to me. They couldn't text me, WhatsApp me, or troll me on social media. Our children need to be stronger. And this idea of self-talk and managing it, if you're wanting to be a good parent, then I would very definitely say to you to listen to this program and to then go into the community and listen to the lesson I put there and start to apply that and support your children. And if your children are teenagers, then join them into the community and share, or you join the community and play the podcast to them. It's so important to understand self-talk and how what you tell yourself has consequences. So important. So, number one, don't believe what you see. Until you trust people or people trust you, you're not really going to get that authentic self. And then recognize that these voices may or may not be your own, but they have consequences to your success. And picking up on that idea of authenticity and trust, there are two specific contestants in this program that demonstrate this beautifully. The first one is an alpha male, ex-boxing champion, physically strong, and yet struggles throughout because he's constantly trying, see that word comes up, trying to be something he thinks the staff want him to be. He is able to do the physical challenges. He's got that physical strength, and yet he's not able to allow himself to grow. I think possibly some vulnerability, but it comes from being authentic. And he says that he's trying to do what he thinks the staff want him to do. And they turn around and they say to him, all they want is someone they can trust, someone they can rely on. And the only way they can trust him is if he's authentically himself. It's a really interesting story throughout the series. The second contestant is a very slight woman, completely opposite to this alpha male. And you start off, and I know in hindsight, this is editing because it's only when you see how the story plays out that you can see that they've picked the clips to emphasize what the editors wanted you to see. Her famousness or her celebrity comes from being in a reality TV show. Yes, she's concerned with her looks, but she's also quite, oh, it sounds horrible to say this, a bit self-absorbed. She chatters on about herself. I know I do that a lot, but I hope that I'm doing it in a way that shares my learning, my insights. Whereas I think what happens is when she says stuff, it sort of turns the conversation back round to her so that people engage with her, which I think is probably from insecurity, if you look at this. She starts to annoy the other contestants, in particularly some of the alpha males. And I won't tell you what happens. Something happens, and then when the next thing happens, my goodness, I actually feel a bit of goosebumps when I think about this woman and her journey through this TV program. And I know it's only a TV program, okay? I know it's been edited, but the story her journey tells is so amazing. I felt slightly guilty watching it at the end because I too had been encouraged to judge her. And I think that if you hadn't watched it through to the end, you wouldn't have seen how amazing she was. And again, I think this is really another reason to watch this program, to watch through how the women are on the journey compared with how the men. It's very easy for the men to do the physical tasks. Yes, some of the women can do the physical tasks, but looking at how they cope mentally and emotionally has been really fascinating. And that's not saying the girls cry and the boys don't cry, because there's a fair bit of tears from the boys as well. But the resilience, the determination, the inner strength is just as important as a couple of big biceps. Very, very powerful story, that one. And then there's one more woman in here that I want to tell you about. Also famous, not necessarily for a clear skill. She appears quite weak, quite fragile, quite vulnerable, but you can sort of see a steely determination in her. She was very clearly there for the experience, for the challenge. She had set herself a goal that she really wanted to achieve. And my gosh, she was also stunning. Her ability to focus, to overcome things I thought that would have knocked her out weeks before. She was quietly successful just not so much head down, physically head down, but, metaphorically head down, knew what she wanted to achieve. She wanted to get through this. She wanted to prove to herself that she could. She was doing so well. I was just cheering her and a couple of other contestants on. And all of a sudden, out the blue, that's it. She decided to stop. And I was literally shouting at the tail, don't give up, don't give up, because I knew from how the program was edited and I knew from how many minutes was left in this episode that she was so near to the end. And sometimes we can see that in other people. We can see how close someone is to achieving their goal and they give up. Do we step in and help them? And that's my role as a mentor, whether I'm sourcing the properties for you or whether I'm teaching you how to do it, is I can see the journey that you're on. That perspective of being on the outside, observing and having the skill and I suppose actually caring enough, and a lot of the mentoring programs, they don't have this relationship with you, but I actually want you to succeed. And I want to be able to do for you what someone did for me, to support me through those moments of doubt, of exhaustion sometimes. Sometimes you are just exhausted from the struggle, not necessarily physically exhausted like in this program, but mentally drained, and to give you that support and that encouragement, sometimes the accountability, the kick up the backside, to get you over that point where you might give up. She was seconds away. I mean, obviously not genuinely seconds away, probably a couple of hours away. And maybe that was just too much for her. But goodness me, I wish she'd just gone through to the end. It would have been incredible. And that's the point. Sometimes I can see how close one of my clients is to achieving their goal. And just being inside the process, sometimes you get caught up in it. And that's the point of a mentor. That's the point of working with someone, because when you're challenged, when you're at that point where you might just give up too soon, you don't have the support. You can fall over the edge. But if you have someone working with you who knows you, who understands you, who you trust and who trusts you, then we're able to show you, or I could show you the reality of how far you've come and how close you truly are to achieving your goal. It is so important to have that support team around you. So that was really fascinating. And then let me just take one last point for you. I always work with my clients to clarify what matters most to them, starting with your values, what your values mean to you, and how your values shape your belief will actually also shape your self-talk. And when I do this exercise with people, I often find some of that self-talk comes out already, because in the conversation, when people book that session with me to go through the values manual, then I start to have those conversations and I can hear those triggers coming through. And you might not be conscious of them, but because of my training, I am, and I can bring them up and ask you if it's something that you want to deal with, and we can reframe it. That's the technical term, to take a little piece of, let's say, a negative sentence, or a sentence that was given to you in your past that actually is having a negative impact on you now. So it's just a sentence, but the way that you've reacted to it is giving you a negative result now. We can go back and we can change the way that you think and you feel about that sentence. And sometimes that's enough. You think differently about it and it just floats off and it's not important to you anymore. Other times you need to work on it and you need to maybe bring in a sentence that is more empowering, so that when that sentence pops up, oh, you're no good at, you can then turn around and reply almost to your own little voice saying, I know that's what you, my mind, used to think in the past, but I can prove to you how wrong you are, because look at what I'm doing, because look at what I'm doing, and because here is the sentence, here is the truth of the matter. This is what matters now. I love this stuff. The way that language shares what you're thinking, but equally, language can shape what you're thinking. And if we start down deep at the point of your values and what matters to you, it's possible to create a really powerful vision that shapes the strategy that we then go on to create with one another. And that's what I do for all of my clients, is get them to make that value statement, that powerful vision of the life that they want to create. And then we work on the practicalities. Right, so this is the vision of how you want to live your life. What do we need to do to get there? And that, of course, will take us into the finances, and then will take us into some form of investing. And if it's property, then I can help you. Our strategy and our reason to working together is to create your easiest path to success. And my years of training as an NLP practitioner has 100% helped me shape my own life. I've been through this. I've had those voices. I've done writing exercises to pull them out now, rather than just let them appear when I face a challenge, so that I can just deal with them. And then by working through those, I've been able to create the sentences. I don't get that chatter. You know, when people talk about, do you have a little voice? I don't really have that anymore. Very, very rarely do I have a voice in my head that makes me doubt what I'm about to do. And I think probably the only time that's come up is just recently, in terms of the cold water that I've been swimming in. That's a new challenge for me. And I I keep making this mistake of looking at the temperature before I go in the water. I'm almost setting myself up to go, oh, that's half a degree colder than yesterday, or that's 1 degree colder than last week. And I'm immediately setting myself up to think that water's going to be cold, that water's going to be cold. And when I go again this next time, I'm not going to look at the temperature now. I don't want to know what the temperature is anymore. I simply want to get in and do what I want to do for as long as I want to do it, because I'm in charge of my thoughts and I know what I'm capable of. And I've reached that point, and I know that what I can do safely and what I can't do safely. But that has been, let me see, close to more than 20 years of training. Yeah, about 20 years of training to get me to this point. But I can speed that process for you, because if you think it's just about buying houses, you've absolutely missed the point. It's your mindset rather than your bank account that's going to determine your success. So I hope in this episode I've been able to give you a lot to think about, not just a new TV program for you to go and watch. And I'm not one of these people that say that the TV is this devil that sits in the corner and sucks your time. It's not. You watch the right programs. I've watched this series. Yes, it's been 6 hours of my life. It's faster than that if you watch it on catch up, because you can get through all the adverts. So it's been less than 6 hours of my life. And look at the lessons that I personally have taken. Look at the lessons that I've taken that I've been able to share with you. That, for me, is a good use of my time. And so I would say to you, see if you can go find this program on Channel 4 Catch Up. But if you can't, maybe go back and listen to this episode again. Pick out and write down, if you've got a place to sit and to write down what are the specific lessons that I have shared with you. Can you pull those out? For example, I'm going to give you a couple of words. The idea of not believing everything that you see and learning when you can trust. Being authentic. Listening to that little voice. Know that there is that episode in the community that you can go and listen to. Also, not being worried about what other people think about you, and knowing that, particularly if you go on the property journey, that this property journey is for you. Head down. This is what you want to achieve, regardless of what everybody else might think. And know that you have the support around you so that you just don't give up before you get there. The number of people I meet that say they don't like property investing, and when I look at it, it's because they either made mistakes during their investing career, mostly that they didn't have someone working with them to support them, and they fell over very obvious hurdles that somebody who was experienced would have been able to point out, or that they spent money, particularly on training courses and mentoring programs, and then they don't follow through because those programs weren't there to give them the level of support that you really need to be successful. To understand that it's your values that shape your beliefs that determine the self-talk, and the self-talk that determines whether you're successful or not and how long it might take you to reach that point. Your mindset, rather than your bank account, will determine your success. I'll leave you on that note. If you have got benefit from this episode, please do leave me a review. Join the community and find that exclusive podcast that I have written and recorded for those people in the community. And if there's anything I can do to help you, of course, do please get in touch, book a call. Until next week, thank you very much for listening. Goodness, so this was quite a mindful episode. Although I talked about it in the guise of this TV program, I want to share with you, or have shared with you, the power of the mind to, first of all, work out how fast and how easy your journey to success will be, and actually whether you will make it all the way to the end. Now, this applies in absolutely any area of your career, your home life, your relationships, your finances. It just triggers through. And all of these lessons could be applied to anything: your parenting, your relationship with your partner, your relationship with your boss and your co-workers or your employees. That idea of creating a trusting environment so that when people need help, they can ask for help. To understand that most people have negative self-talk, and the front that they show the world is just that. It's an illusion. It's a TikTok or an Instagram picture or video. It's not always the truth. That underneath people are struggling. We know that because there is so much mental health pain in this world, primarily being caused from social media and the addiction to our phones. To be authentic, to understand that you have this voice, to take it out, to listen to it. When it's positive, to keep it, to stoke it. And when it is something that is not helpful, to work out what is the purpose of that. Is it something that you heard in your childhood that has no relevance now, so you can just drop it and let it go? Or is it your unconscious mind just saying to you, are you sure you're making the right decisions? Have you got all the information that you need? I think what you're about to do could risk us as a biological unit. Be careful, be careful. And then you can reassure yourself that you do know what you're doing. Or if actually you can't answer the question, no, I don't think I do have all the facts. As I've said to you in past episodes of the podcast, if you're not checking all the facts, this little voice could be the thing that saves your financial life. So they're not all negative, and understanding how to interpret them and how to respond to them is so important. And that's something that I do with all of my clients, and comes from, as I said in this episode, my recognition that it was through my NLP training, understanding the power of language and the power of my own thoughts, that I absolutely feel has shaped me from the woman I was before I did this training. Someone who lacked confidence. Yes, I did things, but I was always that sort of slightly strange outsider, the person who had been bullied at school, some underlying lack of confidence, a bit of a loner because I couldn't trust other people, to recognizing where all of that side of, or it's not even a side of my personality, but that shell that I'd stuck over my personality. And I remember very clearly saying, and I can feel it very powerfully now, that I went into that specific exercise that I'm thinking of as old Vicky, and I came back out as original Vicky, not new Vicky. but the Vicky that I have always been at the core of myself before the bullies draped their cloaks over me and covered me and hid me from being who I want to be, how I want to show up in the world. Ooh, I think I'll stop there actually. Okay, so as I say, hopefully you've got a lot out of this episode, turned into something a bit more powerful for me than I thought it would be then. I hope it's going to be that powerful for you. I wish you and whoosh you every success, and I'll speak to you next week.